Hi and welcome to the farm. Today I got something a little bit different for you. Not exactly farm related, but close enough. Today we're going to be putting in a cable railing or invisible railing into my new 2-inch square tubing deck rails that my brother-in-law was nice enough to make for me. So today we're going to be stringing in these cables, clamping in the invisible connectors. So let's finish off that cup of oolong. Let's get to work. Some good stuff. What we're going to need today is a pair of pliers, a good set of cable cutters, a hydraulic crimper, our invisible connectors, stainless steel washers, and our stainless steel 1/8 inch cable. Now this was my first attempt that I made just a few minutes ago, and my intention was to crimp the connector here in two places, here and then at the tail end. Let me get that back in focus. Here and then back out the tail end. But what I found is, because I'm using a 2-inch square tubing here instead of a 4x4 wooden post, that my connectors will stick out slightly once they're in their fully installed position. The crimp on the tail is visible, so I'm only going to be able to do one crimp, and we'll do that a little bit closer to the thread so that when the invisible connector is installed, it gives a clean finish. I want to string my cable before I put the connectors in. I'm not going to string the end, the final one, until the very last. Now then, I'll come down here and I'll crimp the connector onto this end first. According to the great Google machine, an 1/8 inch cable is 10 gauge, but this connector is really thick. It's much thicker than any cable crimp, cable connector that you would see in the wire or electrical community. This is pretty heavy duty stuff for such a small gauge. So let me bring that up to the camera here. You can see kind of how thick that thing really is there. So I've tried various gauge jaws. 6 is about the best I found. It gives a good crimp without an unsightly deformation of the connector. Now if we look here, this cable goes into the connector this far. This connector is going to stick out of my post because I'm just using a 2x2 post. I'm not using like a 4x4 wood post. It's going to stick out about this much. So I want to put my crimp right about there. So I'm going to start by setting the jaws of my crimper just about center of the unthreaded portion of the connector. I'm going to go just slightly towards the threads, towards the thread side, ever so slightly. I'm just going to hold it here while I snug it up right about there. So I'm just slightly towards the thread side of the center of the connector. Now then, push this in all the way in and hold it. And then I have to use the bottom of the deck as my other brace while I crimp it down. And we go all the way down. Every bit of it. Get it all in there. Yep, like that. There we go. That's a good crimp. It's not pinched off. It's not funny looking. It's just crimped. And it's good and tight. And then we put the washer on with the roundy side out, rough side in. And we're going to run our connector about halfway on the threaded side. Then we're going to pull our cable back. See if I can do this from behind the camera. Like that. And we see a little bit of the connector sticks out, but not the part where we crimped. You really can't see the crimp at all. It's back inside that post. Now this side is going to be a little bit more finicky, and this is where our cutters come into play. So again, I'm going to run the connector about half thread. I'll hold it in place there. and then it's going to come to about right there internally. So I'll just hold that. Got my cutters. We're going to go to kind of the bottom of that well and quick snap. Put our washer on. I'm going to set the jaws just to the thread side of center. There. All right. Pretty snug. Feed our cable in. And we're going to crimp it. Every bit of it. Just give it all the beans. There we go. So I took a little lunch break, recharged my batteries, recharged the camera batteries. Now let's throw the camera into wide angle mode and let's knock this out. So that went pretty well. But up to now, every single one had to be custom made. Each cable is bespoke for its position in the rail, but these are metal rails and they were precision made. So I think that I can make them on bulk by measuring. Let's find out. Okay, let's see here. If I back out halfway down the thread, it's gonna be right at a 1/2 inch. So I should be able to measure the width, add 1 inch, cut the cable, crimp on the ends, and put it into place. Let's find out. So it's 2 inch. So if I take 1 inch off of 1 inch off of 115.5. So if I cut it 114.5, that should work. 114.5 it is. 114.5. That's something heavy to weigh the cable down with. All right. Whew, it is humid out here. It's even sweating up a storm. This one's up against the wall, so there's no way for me to really get a camera over here. The survey says, ooh, smidge short. Could be about a 1/4 inch longer. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's make these. Let's go back to the drawing board on this one. You know what? Got a little extra on the thread. Let's do 115.25. All right, see if this one works any better. And this one may be a smidge too long. Yep, that 1/4 inch I gave it is too much. All right, let's give this one a shot. There we go. Finally. Now then, let's see if we can do some of these in bulk. See, pretty easy to cause a little bit of slippage. Hi, it's about a week later and I'm sick. Not just because of this, but I'm actually sick. No, here I've got some bad crimps. I'll zoom in here close and I'll show you how this happened. All right, now this airplane will stop flying over. I'll show you how this works. And if you don't believe me about the plane, listen to the Budget Builders YouTube channel. They're not far down the road from me, and the plane's in their videos as well. It's constant. So, back to the point. A little off cut of cable, and here's an uncrimped end. So if we put it all the way down in there, use my thumbnail to mark it, and I pull it back. I'll get a little marker here so we can mark it. Right there. All right, that is approximately the end of the open part of the shaft. This down here is solid. Now if we pull out my crimped end here, and I put them side by side, assuming that they're all identical, I started crimping just a little bit into the solid portion of the shaft. If we don't get far enough away from the solid portion of the shaft, and these crimps won't be deep enough to grab hold of that cable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recrimp this cable and get it all to go in there good. I still have my little line here. I'm just going to make sure that I crimp far enough back away from that point that that we get a good crimp. Give us a little bit of room away from the solid portion of connector, and we're just going to crimp her down. All right. All right, let's put that in and put some tension on it and see what happens. All right. We'll go tension on the other side. There we go, nice and tight. Didn't pull free. Whew. Well, for me, measuring them in place, cutting them out one by one worked better than measuring them, cutting them all out, crimping all the ends, and trying to put them all into place. But that's probably because I'm working by myself. If I'd had a helper help me measure better and cut better, I suspect the second method would have worked out better. But for me, for now, I guess I'll go that way. But until next time, thanks for joining me on the farm.